Hello, this is Debbie, and this is Light Up Your Worth. I'm so excited for this week's episode with my guest, Krystal. So, Krystal is a Feng Shui Master, an interior designer, and a clutter expert who helps work from home entrepreneurs turn their spaces into offices they love to work in, even if they suck at it. Using her proprietary framework, the Design Life Method, Mind, Body, Soul, Home, she helps her clients declutter and design a workspace that empowers them to create the life and business that they want. Krystal shows women how to use their workspace as a 3D vision board to help them design who they are becoming and the life they want with it right into their space. Welcome, Krystal.
Hi, Debbie.
I know I have a different space too. So maybe, once all my stuff gets unpacked, I'll have more stuff in my background too, right?
Right.
Feng shui it though.
Mhm.
I am so excited to have you here. When I think about all the spiritual principles and I think of feng shui and I think of decluttering, there's so much to dig into.
Mhm.
And I'm excited to hear about now. How did you get started on, combining feng shui and clutter?
Well, it kind of happened naturally, right? I mean, I started with interior design and got feng shui was in there kind of right away. But when I started taking on clients, right? I was taking on clients and every single one of them, I'd be trying to talk about the feng shui of their space and like how what we need to do to get them like into alignment energetically. And I'd always want to start with, okay, let's get the clutter out so we can, you know, sort of start at a blank slate. Not like the everything, but like let's get this stuff out that you don't want so that we can create this new future in the space that you have. And every one of those clients, they were always getting stuck in just the clutter. Like it was just I had I had actually just sort of decided like, okay, I'm gonna like I really fell in love with this. I really wanted to like pursue it. And I was working professionally, as an interior designer, and I didn't want any sort of like conflict of interest or anything. So I was like, I'm just gonna like take on these little guinea pig clients of mine. Like I was in this sort of this coaching program, right? And I had taken
Hmm.
on all these women that were looking to find love again in their life, right? I was looking to heal my relationship with men in general and to start dating and that sort of thing, as we were all in this coaching program. And I started working with them to kind of try to set up their place specifically and intentionally to help them with their love life, right? And to move
Hmm.
on from, a lot of them were divorcees, a couple of them were widows, but to move on into this new thing. And man, that clutter would get them every time. And so it was like, and it was, and for me, it was sort of like I'd really never had this problem. Like I was the queen of decluttering always, right? Um, and so it was like coaching them through this thing. And then it almost became like getting a degree in psychology to be looking at all of this stuff about clutter. And I mean, because feng shui talks about it a little bit, but very minimally, right? All of the everything of feng shui is, when it talks about clutter, it's just, oh, it stagnates the energy, boom, the end, right? It's not a good
Hmm.
thing, the end. But we don't really dig into it. But when I was working with clients and really digging into it, it's the psychology part, right? That is the reflection of like what's going on internally. So it was super fascinating to me. It sort of brought it actually full circle for me, because when I first started in feng shui, it was actually as a result of my psychology class in when I was in design school. I had to write a psychology paper on something related to my field of study. And so I wrote my paper on Feng Shui and the psychology of like your relationship with your space and like the energy and how it flows in there. And so I'd written this paper. And as I started like going into my career professionally with that, it was like, oh, wow, here's the psychology, like really big in your face. And so yeah,
Well,
it's
that's
got to be
so
my favorite.
that's really fascinating because I start thinking about what you're saying, and I think about, yeah, when you are feeling a little overwhelmed and people don't, they start holding on to old things and all the energy associated with it.
Mhm.
Oh, so what have you found then working with, spiritual or, entrepreneurs that are more in the spiritual realm? What are we holding on to? What do you see most frequently with where we have opportunities to release?
Well, in the work that I do with clutter specifically, I end up spending a lot of time talking about scarcity clutter, worthiness clutter, and obligation clutter, and
Oh,
how those things, that the constant mirroring of those things to us keeps us playing small and keeps us from really making the impact that we want to make, in our businesses, in our lives, in the world. It keeps us stuck, and it keeps us from really achieving all of those dreams that we want.
wow. I never really thought about it as, our own worthiness with, equating into some of the clutter. But, that makes sense to me. I can see where you you could get stuck on holding on to something that really, or keeping it organized, or I frequently like to get rid of stuff. So I wouldn't say I was a natural declutter, but I like organization. And I move frequently, like a lot, cross states. And
Me
so
too.
yeah. And so I have everything I own in like a 10 by 12 storage right now. And I just have a few things with me that fit in my vehicle for a while here. So probably by the time this airs, maybe I'll have more stuff with me, but so that I could declutter again. And it's really freeing if once you get started.
It is. It is. I often say that, decluttering is the ultimate act of self-care.
Oh, that resonates right there. How about, when you are looking through a decluttering, having gone through the process multiple times, every time I move, a lot, is that the one area that I have the most difficult decluttering, right? Thinning out the stuff is the pictures that I've had. I have multiple totes of pictures. I've gone through them where there was like 9 totes. We're talking, the big totes. I had 9 of those. And there were pictures that were mine. There were pictures from when my dad passed, his pictures. I had pictures that my grandmother kept in one tote. And then I went through and I organized them, and we started getting rid of duplicates, or like, okay, I don't need 5 pictures of a tree that somebody saw in Nebraska 25 years ago, right? So I got rid of some of these things,
Right.
but I still ended up with like 3 totes. 3 totes of when I was in the child raising season, and you wanna hold on to them, but I think getting it down to 3, I felt really accomplished. But I mean, one tote has photo albums, so, the whole crafty, you spent way too much money and way too much time on, those I'm gonna
Yes.
keep for the rest of my, my natural
Right.
life.
There's like 10 pictures in there, but it's a
Yeah,
whole book of
yeah,
like
right? Why did
yeah.
that sound like a good idea at the time? I don't know. But, but how do you help people through the I think those are the tough things, the photos, the gifts that people gave you, maybe they've passed, and so you're attached to something that really you're not going to do anything with.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are really, most of those sound a lot like obligation clutter, and that is hard
Oh,
one. Those keep you really stuck. Um, it's Yeah, they're hard. They're hard, honestly. It's a, each individual person's energy and all of their relationship with their clutter is unique and different, but photographs are always super personal. And it's not to say there's a bad thing, but if you're just keeping them in a box, what's the purpose?
Yeah.
Like, really, what is the purpose? You're not looking at them. They're not serving a purpose other than to stagnate up the energy in whatever corner you have them shoved in.
Hmm. Yeah, I've thought about like taking them and scanning them. And then I thought, well, then will I ever look at them there? But I don't know. How do you find him? Later if you try to find him, it would take you like 50 years, I think, to actually categorize them. Unless that's probably somebody's business now, right? Come to
Right.
our house and scan them because I don't want to lose sight of them. But
Mhm.
and I'll tell you who they are, or if it's written on the back.
Right. But yeah, you could there totally is probably somebody that has that business. Absolutely. And I mean, digital clutter is also a thing, right?
Mhm.
So you have to be aware of that. But there's it's just like anything else, right? You really have to come down to what's clutter and what's not clutter, and how are we going to handle them, right? There's lots of things you can do, like if you upload them, to the internet or to your computer or whatever, you can put them on Ancestry at this point, and now anybody who's related to you and finding them can find all these pictures, right? And now everybody has access to them, and they're not just hidden in a closet of, you know, in and the only person that ever sees them is you once a year when you come out and try to whittle it down more. Right?
Yeah, right.
But what about all the other people that might enjoy them? Like, it's it's sort of is yeah, it's just looking at things differently, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, as I go through the next round of what am I gonna rehome or donate. So that's got to be really freeing by the time somebody starts to work with you to go through and figure out what to do with the clutter, with what category it falls into, how emotionally freeing it is.
Yeah, it is really. It's a that's why I do the work that I do, really, because it is a reflection of all the baggage that you're carrying. So when you can, like, put the bags down, so to speak, right? You don't have to carry that crap around with you anymore. You are literally free from it. Like, you're just la la la, dancing down a beach somewhere.
Right? Yeah, and I can imagine spiritually when I think about the meaning of holding on to stuff too. If you were looking for love, then and you're holding on to something like I actually threw away, you'll laugh about this, about 4 years ago when I was moving from Wyoming, I pulled out the tote that had like high school memories. I still had like the corsage from my I went to a freshman year,
Yeah,
senior prom, and he wasn't like a serious boyfriend, but I had kept the corsage and the little dance book. And I thought, why? I think I'm good. And
right.
stuff that you forget that you actually have hidden away.
It's super easy to forget about all the stuff we have hidden away. I mean, and then, it's easy to not notice the clutter that's right in front of our faces all day long. Like, seriously, it's clutter is this insidious thing, right? You kind of have to have a system. Like, I'm a big believer in systems. You have to have a system about all of this stuff, you know, um, just to be able to keep it moving, right?
Mhm.
We're not meant to hoard.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. So I'm curious about, of course, I've heard about feng shui. I think probably people have heard about feng shui.
Mhm.
Everything has a certain place. And I'm curious about, is there certain, like, do you look at the house from like east, west, north, south? And then I think it's like different parts of your house carry certain energy. How raw or how off base am I when I think about feng shui?
About 50%.
Okay. Yay.
The big problem is that pretty much since it became popularized in Western culture, almost since the beginning, it was immediately hijacked with fake feng shui people throwing in their 2 cents with, oh, hey, I could write a book on this and throw it out there and be an expert and make money. And so there's a whole lot of misinformation that's been put out there
Mhm.
for, 30 plus years. So a lot of people have the wrong idea of what's real and what's not real when it comes to feng shui. Yes, it has to do with north, south, east, and west. It has to do with the energy of the space. And it sounds strange to say, but how it's calculated, right? And how it's mapped in the space. I think what you were talking about is probably what's referred to as the Bagua map, which is a misrepresentation of the master trigram, which is how you use to map the space and how that energy flows in the
Oh.
space.
Mhm.
And then how it's remedied, right? Because we do sort of we have an energetic frequency, right? And so does our home have an energetic frequency, but very much like a car battery, right? It's going to have a positive and negative sort of charge areas of the space. But it depends on its relationship with you, right? Because like each person is also like the cord, right? So if you are a red post person in a red post house, you're good. But if you're trying, you know what I mean? But you're also going to have different areas of that house that are going to be the opposite, right? Does that make
Mhm.
sense what I'm trying to say? So just
Yeah.
like if it's a positive charge that's a match to you, that's great. But then 50% of your house is still going to have that not so great energy, because then if somebody else lived there that was like a black post person with a black post house, right? They would be perfect in those areas and not in this, if that makes sense, right?
Okay. Mhm.
Because the house has both. People only get to have one. So that way, but it's sort of a marriage of how that energy works. And so we map the space to say, okay, this is all right, east and west stuff, this is all north and south stuff, and how does it match up, right? How does it blend together? And so
Mhm.
that we can actually do it's mathematical calculations, right? Feng shui is all based in physics, geometry, architecture, and design. So it's just mathematical calculations to map that out and then interpret that to what needs to be remedied.
Oh, really? I've actually
Mhm.
never heard that it's a mathematical calculation. Tells you, well, I probably have read
You've
something about it along the way that wasn't correct.
Yeah, you've probably come across more fake feng shui than actual feng shui,
Mhm.
um, more often than not.
Yeah. So if I was looking, like, if I am I'm building a business, you work with entrepreneurs then.
Mhm.
So how do you balance then the positive and the negative charges to bring them more abundance, or bring them more success or visibility, or you do it individually with these principles?
Yeah, it's very personalized. Feng shui is very personalized, right? Because it's based on your energetic frequency
Mhm.
and the energetic frequency of your home. So it is like a marriage, right? It's very one-on-one. There's no like group mass uh remedy that's going to work for everybody, right? Just like
Mhm.
this, oh, everybody should have a water feature in their office because that'll make it successful. Nope. That doesn't work
Oh.
that way, right? You have to do the math to figure out like what is what is what does your map look like, and where are there holes that need to be filled, where is there too much of something that needs to be corrected, like what do we need to do to make it like fit you. It's like tailoring your clothes, right? We're
Mhm.
doing the same with the energy of your space. We're tailoring it to fit you and your energetic frequency, is how that works.
Oh.
Um, mhm.
Oh, that's really interesting. So if you were trying to like focus on like the example you used was like, oh, we're going to go put a water fixture in our office because we read that that creates flow, or I don't know what it's going to create, but I'll just say flow. And that could be really the opposite. You could actually have your money be flowing out of you.
Yeah.
And because you don't know if you're a positive or negative energy in this feng shui world. So,
Right. You don't know what's out of alignment.
yeah.
So if you're just adding, like if you're adding water, if you're adding a water element to your space, you have no idea. Your space might already be out of balance with water. And like you say, now you add more and now you've created a problem, or you've not created a problem, but you've added to the problem by, so yeah, now you might have created a problem where even more money is flowing out, or it's flowing out more quickly than it was before. So you might have exacerbated the problem by trying to correct it with these fake feng shui methods.
That's really interesting. I mean, how do you this is the math based upon like something like our birth date or something? I
Mhm,
mean, oh, is it?
mhm.
I was just
Yeah,
guessing. Oh.
yeah.
Oh, so does it use some of the I want to say astrology, but so it uses
Not
or
really.
okay.
No, it doesn't.
Hmm.
It doesn't use astrology. It doesn't even use Chinese astrology, to be honest. It
Hmm.
uses something completely different. It just has to do with what is that energy, what is that master trigram, and what trigram are you, and so how do you fit into that sort of sequence.
Uh-huh.
What trigram is your house, and are you a match to your house, or are you not a match to your house, right?
Hmm.
um so we have to do the math on both you and the house, um to be able to to figure out those calculations and see where the alignments need to happen, because all houses need an alignment, right? Everybody
Uh-huh.
needs to be fitted, right? Everybody needs to be fitted into their space. But because and you need to have it done every time you move. So like if you're people like you and I who move every few months, it's like, man, it's like this extra step of making sure that you're in alignment, because your frequency pattern doesn't change, but
Hmm.
the space does. And so every time you're in a slightly different space. So it's got to be modified.
Oh, that's really I'm thinking of all the people who just closed a house or something. They're like, "What? What do you mean? I should have." Before you make an offer on a house, PS, you might want to map it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good idea. If you already know you're going to be working with a feng shui consultant, or you're already have one in your pocket that you work with all the time, then yeah, having a feng shui expert look at the floor plans of your home before you make an offer is a brilliant idea. It's probably the best decision you could make, especially if you're like trying to decide between multiple homes. At least then, at the very least, you could have someone to say energetically, this one is better for you than that one. More supportive. It's going to be a more foundational, like supportive energy, because it's a match,
Mhm.
right, to you energetically, whereas this one isn't. So that's always a good thing. Either one of them can be corrected, because either one of them are going to have small things that need to happen. But yeah, some houses are just better for others, or better than others.
Yeah.
um
So if you're already in a space, then you're able to then balance it out with okay. So somebody's like, "Okay, I don't need to sell my house and buy another house," or
No, no, not at all. It's just what is the frequency pattern of the space that you're in right now?
Mhm.
And how are those two frequencies playing together? Because sometimes you can feel it. Like you walk into a place and it's just like, ugh, this place feels yucky. And there's no
Mhm.
reason for it to not feel good. It just doesn't. That
Mhm.
is one that is clearly not an energetic match for you, and you won't want to spend time there. So it's probably not a house you're going to put an offer on.
Yeah.
Hopefully, right? But some of them you can walk in and they'll feel really good, but then you do the thing and it's like, oh, okay, well, we just have to add a few elements to fix this here or fix that there. And
Mhm.
you do kind of want to, spend minimal time in those areas that are energetically draining to you,
Oh.
right? Versus the
Mhm.
ones that are refreshing and recharging, is sort of how it works in the space, right?
Mhm.
And so if you want to try to make sure, if you're working from home, right, you would want your office to be in one of those areas that's good for you and charging you all the time. Same with your bedroom. Whereas you would not want it in one of those that's going to be energetically draining just for you to physically be in the space.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So if you have, what type of elements then do you use? I know we've talked about the, like having a water element, but what other type of elements do you bring in to help with that positive negative balance?
Well, in Feng Shui, there's only five:
Mhm.
wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And so those are the only remedies that we use.
Mhm.
If someone is promoting something other than those five things, that's a really huge red flag that what they're touting is fake feng shui. Those are the only remedies to be used: is wood, fire, earth, metal, and water.
Mhm. So what is metal? Is that like, uh, a metal piece of something? What would metal be? Like,
Um, sure. I actually just did a whole video on this on my
oh,
YouTube
did
channel
you?
actually not that long ago. Yeah. But it can be just about anything as long as it is metal.
Mhm.
It can be statuary is really good. I've had it be like shelving racks is a good thing. I've had it be a weightlifting set, right? Like, because that's weights, that's all metal too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It
Oh,
doesn't have to be a thing. It has to be an element. So
okay.
when you see people trying to say, oh, here's your feng shui coin or your bagua mirror or whatever, yeah, that's crap. It doesn't have to be a specific thing. It has to be a specific element. So metal can be anything that is made of metal. And if you can't really get metal, it can also be colors, right? The metallic colors or um, whites and grays, right? Silver, gold, white are all
Oh,
going to be colors that
mhm,
represent the metal element. But yeah, I mean, you've got metal right up there behind you, your little statues of stuff.
mhm.
Also crystals are metal element.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have wood back here I have glass, I have lots of crystals back there, a couple statues and
Yeah. Those statues look to be metal to me. I'm
mhm,
assuming they
yep,
look to be brass or something.
mhm.
Um, Glass is considered water element.
Oh, interesting.
Um, but wood, like wood furniture and that
Mhm,
is not. There's distinct differences between dead wood energy, like wood furniture or, like this picture frame or whatever, and live wood energy. Right, like plants and what you want to use and what you don't, right? Because you don't want dead wood energy. So lots of books, paper is all wood energy, but it's dead. And so it's a very heavy, weighted energy. And so a lot of books in your space can be very anchoring to the clutter. I mean, excuse me, to the energy and keep it stuck and stagnating there, because it's super heavy.
wow. I have books coming. I probably have I think I'm down to about 8 boxes of books.
Woo!
I used to have 3 very tall, bookshelves full of them that I always kept in my office, and now I think I'm down to, like, 1.
That's impressive. That's impressive. I think the biggest one I had was like 6 or 7 feet tall and about just as wide and absolutely full. Um, and I got rid of all of them before I moved to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Um, and
It's hard to recycle. I recycled them. There was, I think I got rid of a large percentage of them when I lived in Reno, and they had a, recycled, bookstore, that
Yes.
you could,
Mhm.
some of them you got a quarter for, or 50 cents or a dollar, but mostly I just wanted a home
Yes.
of where there would be a possibility if somebody could reread
Right.
all the
Get
books I
value.
had. Yeah.
Sure, I hear
I
you.
just didn't
I've
want
done
to
the
throw
same.
it away. Yeah.
Yeah, Denver had one like that too when I was getting ready to move to Hawaii, a used bookstore that you can, and I love used bookstores. You find all sorts of
Hmm.
amazingly good finds in there.
Yeah. So if somebody's listening and they're like they're curious, like, oh, well, where do I begin? Um, to even understand this. Um, do you have any like suggestions or uh I mean, I know reach out to you, obviously, but
Yeah. Well, to get started with clutter, I'd say step one is, well, I have a proprietary decluttering method. And actually I give that away for free. So the first thing would be to go download that. So you can download it at declutteryourmindset.com and go through that method and start. It's different. It's not like your typical what you're probably used to, so it's just a new way of looking at your clutter. It would, it would be helpful to think of it differently. And so yeah, I would start there, to start looking at your clutter different and looking at your relationship with your space a little different.
hmm Yeah. I was what was I gonna say? I had the opportunity to go through and I'm moving my stuff from where I was. It's up in Washington state now, and I'm in Flagstaff. So I'm gonna be moving it down here. Hopefully it'll arrive in the next few weeks. And my goal is to go through and get it down to very, very minimal amount of stuff.
Mhm.
And because I was thinking to myself as I go through it was that well, if this, even if it's a $200 item, if I do like ROI on the storage, and if I have it in storage a year, could I just replace it?
Yeah.
Or, so where can I donate this stuff? Like
Right.
practically brand new stuff or clothes that I thought, well, maybe I'll wear that again. No, let's just release it. It feels like
Yeah.
that's even part of that obligation stuff that you were talking about.
Some of it sounds like scarcity, some of it sounds like obligation, some of it sounds probably, I know we talked about worthiness earlier, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's all, and they tend to all like weave together. Like it's, some of it'll have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it's always it's always fun to when you start learning how to really listen to what your clutter is saying to you,
Hmm.
it makes decluttering fun.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to, use my downloaded copy of the Declutter Your Mindset, right? Because it would be interesting to try it from a different perspective, of maybe I hadn't thought about this and how can I now release it and, you know, send it
Yeah.
send it back out there. I have noticed that every time I go through and get rid of stuff, that more new stuff comes in. It like creates this expansion.
Yeah, it makes room for all the new blessings that the universe is trying to send you. So, and that is why usually afterwards, you pick up, you probably notice an upsurge in like clients too, and business and
Mhm.
opportunities and all sorts of things, not just stuff, but yeah, stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
It's
Mhm. Yeah, now what are some of the biggest, like, some of the success stories that you've had with working with people? Like, how, where they were versus where they went, when you guys were done, and how did that show up in their entrepreneur business?
one of my favorite stories actually is a woman who came to me, and she was actually still part-time in her business. um she had a part-time job and she was working in her business part-time. She was renting an office space outside of her home, right, in like a corporate office building. And she didn't have as many clients as she wanted. She was barely affording to really pay the rent on her office space. It was sort of breaking even, but she really was like, she needed to step into this next level of, to really be able to make that shift over. And she had a lot of clutter. Her office was full of clutter. Her home was full of clutter. She had a storage unit full of more clutter. She had clutter. She just had a lot of stuff going on. And so we did the work I do with clients one-on-one is specifically is called a peace and prosperity alignment, the work that we do together. And so we worked together for a couple of months and on her space and got all of the decluttering taken care of. We really took a deep dive into this 5-step decluttering method. Like we really dig in. And at the end of our work together, well, at the end of the first month together, she tripled her income, just tripled her income.
Wow.
Right. And then she proceeded to do that for 3 months in a row that we worked together. Right. And was like, well, okay. And then just kept it there and was like, oh, okay. So I guess I can quit now. I can quit my job and I can go full time, like in my business. Right. So within like 6 months of us working together, she was able to quit her job and go full time in her business because she had tripled her income in her business. And then, I mean, I thought the story was over at that point, right? But then she called me back a bit. She called me back later and was like, so we're going to have to do this again because the office complex that she had been renting in came to her and were like, they had this big corporate client that wanted to rent out the entire wing of that building for their company. And so they were asking all of these individuals to move to, I'm not sure if it was the other wing or a different building or whatever, but they came to her and asked her to move to a different office. This office was almost twice the size of the office that she was in, but they weren't going to raise her rent because this was their request, right? Based on what they were trying to do. So all of a sudden now she tripled her income. Then she got a brand new office that was twice the size for the same amount of rent. And then not too long after that, they had moved, her and her husband had actually moved back in with her parents. They were trying to save up some money to buy a new house. And, they had this whole thing going on. And shortly thereafter that, this whole property situation like fell into their lap. Their absolute dream house under their budget. Like everything was just like, wow, how many more miracles are we going to see happening in your life? Just because she literally got energetically aligned with the life she wanted to create. Like she'd been visualizing it forever, but energetically she was just fighting against it with all this clutter, really keeping her stuck. And when we finally got rid of the clutter and got the energy flowing in her space, all of a sudden, all these things that she was trying to manifest just came rushing in, like one after another after another. She was my favorite success story ever because it was like, this is never going to stop. She just keeps on calling and calling me. Another win and another win and another win. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing to be able to do that. And so it makes me think of, do I need all this wood in my room? No.
Yeah, wood energy is no. Clutter is just anything you don't need, use, or love. It's pretty simple and straightforward.
Yeah. Oh, I did do that. So everything that I pretty much have in this space right now, if it fit in my car, and I really did it. The funny thing is, I was telling my sister is that I have my shredder in storage because it's a big shredder because I like to shred mail or my envelopes even. Like I just feel better. There's nothing confidential about an envelope, but I like to shred it. And so I was telling her, I can't wait for my shredder to show up because it feels like it changes the energy of, the mail I get. As silly as that sounds.
No, that was sort of the beginning of, for me, that was that I had a moment that was a huge thing for me around that sort of stuff. Actually, I fought really hard against clutter and decluttering when I first started, right? Because I started this other company that I was working with these women and helping them with love. And I'd probably been in business for a couple years, actually working with those women. And I hired a coach to sort of help me really figure out how to do this business thing, right?
Yeah.
And in the process of working with her, right, it was all this stuff kept coming up about clutter, clutter, clutter. And I was like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to talk about clutter. I don't want to be that clutter person. I don't want to be a clutter. I don't want to be. I fought against it so hard. But when this particular coach invited me to do, like, it was sort of a challenge, right? And she invited me to do 30 days of live streams on Facebook, right? Sort of to get over the fear of being on camera.
Mm-hmm.
This was a long time ago, by the way.
Yeah, you seem pretty comfortable to me.
Yeah, this was when I was first getting started. And I was like, I started, and then I thought, this is a waste of my time. I'm not going to do 30 days of crap. Like, that's just garbage. Like, what is the point? Just to get over my own fear? No, I'm going to do something worthwhile. So I went home and I took about a week to kind of plan it all out. It was the end of April. So for the month of May, I was like, ooh, I'm going to do this 30-day decluttering challenge. And somewhere in the middle, I was doing paper, and I had this box of mail, just like you said, and I shredded, and I had, those grocery store like little plastic bags from the grocery store. I wound up with 11 of those bags of shredded paper. It took me 3 days to shred all the paper, because of course I had to open all those envelopes and look through them and make sure, oh, this can be trashed, this can't, and then shred it all. And my shredder's not as big as yours. It's a smaller one. It's not meant so it can only do like 2 pages at a time. But that moment, quite frankly, was one of those like life-changing moments, because that was when I started to really put it together, the significance of the clutter. Like, I'd been coaching women for 2 years around like clutter and how to declutter it and what we needed to do and all of that. But that was a moment that was super eye-opening for me, personally and professionally. Like, oh, and that was when I really started changing how I worked with clients and how we dealt with clutter. And when I developed this method of, I shouldn't say I developed it then, but when I really started perfecting it and started turning it into a tool, not just, oh, we can declutter, because anybody can declutter, but when I really started honing in on the clutter and what it's telling me, like, that was a big moment for me, all around just shredding up some paper. So I totally feel you on that, on what the difference that makes.
Yeah. And I did start out with the small one, by the way. I had what you had, and I was in Reno, and I had a girlfriend who says, well, everything I do is on online, right? I don't know if it's on Dropbox or Evernote or something, right? She goes, everything is there. So I always have access to it. And I said, well, how did you do that? She goes, I went through every single piece of paper I have. And if I didn't need it, then it got shredded. If I needed it, she had this super small thing that was made just for scanning papers, all sizes. And so I said, oh, okay, let me go through that. What I realized is I probably had 6 drawerfuls of paper, because I'm one of those people who, like, I have my utility bills for 3 years back, because I like to do little geeky spreadsheets in them, and then I keep it, because you never know when it got paid. So I started going through, and I borrowed her scanner, and so that I would feel better, then I scanned them all. I created it online. It's all very organized. And then I shredded it, and I blew up the shredder. So I was like, it wouldn't do it. It kept getting too hot. And then I ended up with a huge tote of paper. And I think my mom's like, well, just take it down to, like UPS store and they'll shred it for you. And I'm like, no, that's my stuff. Like I was attached to the stuff. Right. And which
Right.
I was really attached to it. So then I was like, okay, well, so we went down. I was married. He went down because he didn't want me stopping. I was in the flow. He went down and picked up this big, huge thing. And I don't know how you can love a shredder so much, but I also set
I
up those
do.
files online. You do. Like it feels good to shred that stuff.
It
It
does.
like I seriously feel like it releases it. Like, okay, like say I just paid something and I write paid in full, I scan it, into a file and then I shred it. And it just feels like it's free.
Completion. It's completion
Yeah.
energy. It's absolutely completion energy. That is done. The loop is
Uh-huh.
closed. The
Yes.
bill is paid. And I have returned the tree to a pulp state. And now it can be returned to earth.
Oh, I like that. Oh,
It's full on
I
completion
feel so
energy.
complete right now.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it's
oh, right. Because people are like, what do you do on every few weeks? I spend time and I do all of that, or I try to keep up on it weekly. Some weeks I'm successful. Well, right now I'm not, right? I got a big group of stuff waiting for the shredder party. I'll have to call you.
yeah.
Hey, I'm shredding today. It's my shred
Nice.
weekend.
Yeah, completion energy is awesome. It's what allows us to take that forward and create something new. If
I
you
love
don't
that.
close the loop, you're just carrying around all this unfinished energy, right? That
Mhm.
you need the completion energy, to be able to keep going.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, well, I love that. Well, thanks for validating my shredder loneliness.
No, it's love. It's
Oh,
not
and
loneliness, it's
love.
love.
I love that shredder.
Right. Mine is, I've been in we did the nomad thing too. I put everything in storage a few years ago and only packed up what I needed. I got my little office box like right
Mhm.
next to me. And my shredder was one of the things that went into storage, even as tiny as it is. And yeah, there are days I miss the shredder. I'm just like, I have to
Mhm.
shred. And tearing it up is not the same.
I've tried because I'll tear it like, you get the credit card
Hmm.
offers or something. I tear them and I just don't get that feeling of, yeah, satisfaction. And then now you just completed me. It's completion. I like that whole cycle. So
Yeah, completion energy is good.
yeah. Well, thank you. This has been so much fun, Krystal, all this completion. And I know we're wrapping up our time, but how can people reach you?
Goodness. Well, if they download my 5-step method to decluttering, that will put them in touch with me by email. They can reply at any time and have a conversation with me. They could book a call with me if they're interested in speaking to me about their specific space and their specific clutter
Mhm.
at peaceandprosperityalignment.com. And if you just want to hang out with me on social media, come find me on YouTube.
Cool. And what's the name of your YouTube channel?
Well, hopefully by the time this airs, the easiest way to find it is just watch Krystal TV.
Okay. Okay. And we'll put that
Mhm,
in the notes as well. And
mhm.
and as well as I'll add it on my recommended channels on my YouTube channel, which is, the Light Up Your Worth. But I will include that there for everybody to be able to find you. This has been so much fun. I feel like my hidden, secrets of my need to shred, it's just been resolved and I feel you've normalized my feelings. Thank you.
Right, there's no shame around it.
Yeah,
No shredder
I can
shame
let
at
that
all.
go.
Yeah, you don't have to be ashamed of it. It's a good thing. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's full on a good thing. So
Yeah.
yay.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been so much fun and all of the information that you shared have been so useful for everybody. So thank
Thank
you.
you. You're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
If you enjoyed this Light Up Your Worth episode, Be sure to share with a soulful friend who needs to hear this message. Thanks so much for listening and being part of the Light Up Your Worth community. My heart is full of gratitude for you. You are my inspiration to shine the light of spiritual, heart-centered women. Now go out there and shine your own light. Sending you sunshine.